This is Dr. Ball with Health Matters podcast. And I was fortunate to be able to interview a longtime friend of over 40 years, Rob Marquise, who, in all transparency and even vulnerability, wanted to share um, his devastating story in hopes that maybe he can help someone else who may be going through similar or worse. Um, 2021, we were already being devastated by COVID. And to make matters worse, Rob was experiencing back pain. You know, we get to a certain age, our back just aches and we just say, well, my back is hurting. But as time went on, it kept hurting and it kept hurting. And Rob also was diagnosed at an early age of having Parkinson's disease. And so he went to his neurologist thinking that maybe this was a progression. I mean, he's got this ache, his leg feels heavy, and they went straight to the MRI, and he got this devastating news that there was a softball size mass sitting on the left side of his back on his psoas muscle. And so, Rob, I'd like to know what feelings, what thoughts came to your mind when you were told the results of the MRI?
Yeah, hi Curtis.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was not diagnosed, but when I got the word that there was a softball-sized tumor in my back attached to my psoas muscle and my right kidney, actually, I got a call from my primary care physician after the MRI
Mhm.
that I had.
So it was on your kidney too, Rob. So basically, it
Yeah,
already
it actually was on the
metastasized.
right side, Curtis.
Okay.
Right side kidney attached there in the psoas muscle. But when I got the call, it was devastating. I was frightened, scared. My primary physician says, "We need to get you, uh, we need to get you into an oncologist to get a biopsy of this mass." So, of course, the first things that come to your mind, if anybody out there has cancer that is listening to this, is devastating news that, okay, is this terminal? Am
Yeah.
I going to pass away next week?
Yeah.
How do we go forward? Um, it's very scary. So those were my first initial feelings, and I was very anxiety ridden as well.
Mhm.
So those were the initial thoughts that came to me.
Well, thanks for that, Rob. At a age unexpectedly, and you're in your 50s, and we don't think of the C word. The C word tends to come with 70s, 80s. If we're blessed to get 90s, but 50s. So with that, how did it affect your approach to life? Your job, you're a working man, you got a
Sure.
beautiful wife of 28 years, you got
Well, yeah.
um,
Thank
adult
you very much.
children. And how did it affect your approach to life dealing with um, mortality, actually?
Well, at first, Curtis, it was a very. I've also struggled with mental illness since I was 20, so this really put a downward spin on me at
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
So there was a downward period,
Yeah.
uh, because I hadn't gotten the biopsy news yet.
Right.
So when I got the biopsy news, um, just so you know out there, I was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma cancer, which is normally found in children from 5 to 18.
Yeah.
Not normally. It's very rare to show up in an adult and on a small tissue like a muscle. Um, and children, it usually shows up in a bone. But
Yeah.
when they did the biopsy, and the gene mutation. Unfortunately, I was the only person in the United States with that gene mutation for this type of cancer.
Mm.
So it was very rare. So once I found that out, of course, I was very nervous. Um,
Understandably so.
yeah, why am I a unicorn? you know, I'm thinking, what's going on here? So yeah, I had a. So the feelings up to that point, and then hearing that were very. How do I want to put it? It was sad.
Yeah.
It was anxiety ridden. I was depressed. I was scared. Um, so those are the things. Once I found out, okay, now I need to meet with an oncologist and find out what the plan is.
Yeah.
So
And with that plan, Rob, if I recall, and you've been sharing your story on Facebook as well, you did you undergo chemotherapy first or surgery first?
well, it was a chemotherapy first. I went through 12 sessions of chemotherapy.
Hmm.
My chemotherapy that was given to me, as I was a rare case, they did not, Curtis, have a what you want to call a cocktail
Gotcha.
of I call poison.
Yeah.
They throw it. They threw at me the harshest uh, regimen, would I say?
Yeah.
So I went. So I would go for one day, 8 hours, and then I would rest for 3 weeks. And then I would go after that 3 weeks. I'd go 5 days in a row for 8 hours a day with the chemo, and then back and forth. So that's how it went, and it did affect my work
Yeah.
because when you have the chemo and the strongest that I was taking, yeah, you get very tired. Um, you're not sure if this is gonna take care of it.
Yeah.
Uh, so you're going through that chemo. And then I got a positive feeling about it. Actually, it's like, okay, I'm going through chemo for cancer. There's a lot more people in this clinic right now getting chemotherapy, and I'm sure some of their situations are worse than mine.
Yeah.
So at that point, I kind of turned to God and my faith, and I prayed for those people um, also. So those were the kind of feelings I had at that point. So after a certain amount of time, um, the tumor didn't shrink with the chemotherapy. It didn't show that it had shrunk. That was the goal
Right.
that the doctors had. So at that point, I've been through so much chemo. I told them I do not want to go through more chemo. I would like to have this surgically removed. Um, so yes, that was done. I was blessed with wonderful surgeon, um, and at that point, that was quite a surgery.
What
Uh,
what did it entail?
well, it entails removing the tumor, the Ewing sarcoma tumor, where it was slightly attached to my, to my kidney. It was deemed that we need to remove that kidney too to be safe.
Okay.
Uh, and then also they removed a lot of my psoas muscle, so it's hard for me to lift my leg, like raise my knee to my chest,
Right. Right.
because that muscle, as you know, is connected to that upper thigh and
Right.
to that allows you to do that. Um, so yeah, they severed 3 nerves
Okay.
as well. So I have some numbness. Sorry to keep moving around with the phone, Curtis. I'll try my best, but
No, you're fine. You're fine.
okay, great. So at that point, I was put into a 3-month scan schedule
Okay.
to monitor. After the second 3-month scan, so 6 months after, 3 more tumors showed up in my lungs. And that's not lung cancer, it's a metastasize, a moving of the original tumor to my lungs, to a soft tissue.
Right.
I had 3 of those in the left lung, and I had one. Excuse me, 2 in the lower right. So
Goodness.
at that point, the cancer had come back.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
we monitored it for a while, and it had grown very aggressively. The tumors in my left lung were as large as ping pong balls, and the ones in the right lung were much smaller. So at that point, I had to have a left lung resection, because one of these ping pong sized tumors was in the top lobe of my left lung, and the other 2 were in the lower part of my left lung. So
And Rob, this is after the surgery and after the chemo, all the chemotherapy as well.
that is correct.
Mm.
Yeah, that is correct.
I,
So,
I got to
what?
ask you, I
Yeah.
got to ask you, did you ever get to a point, and I know you mentioned the underlying mental illness and faith, but I also know you're human as well. Did
Yeah.
you ever get to the point where you said, F it all? I can't do
At
it.
that point, I didn't, but there is a point that I did.
Where if you're up to it, if you can elaborate on that darkest moment.
Yeah, well, just recently, the cancer had shown up again after a 3-month scan. Um, so before I get to that, I'll just have a little humor, Curtis, because I have tried to have as much humor as I can and positivity
Yes. Yeah.
through the whole journey, and it's very, just so folks know that you really need to have that positive to, be positive
Yeah.
and try to find things that make you happy while
Yeah.
you're going through this
Yeah.
thing. And most of the time, I've been happy. But
Good. Yes, you have.
yeah, so probably about a month ago, actually, everything had been coming down on me. Okay. Um, 3 years of uh, basically 2.5, 3 years of cancer, um, five uh, 5 surgeries over the past 3 years. Um, so yeah, it's been tough that way. So the cancer had shown up again. Went through another round of radiation. I did actually. I don't know if I told you this, but we did. I did go through a series of 28 days in the beginning of January 2023, 28 days straight for to the original site. So when this new, most recent tumor showed up in my right lung, we caught it small enough and were able to stop the growth of it with radiation. So up and downs, I've been, you can imagine with everything going on, surgeries and all that, I've been out of work a lot, and very, very lucky and blessed that I have a great workplace and, positivity there. So
Right.
it helped out a lot. But everything came to a head about 4 Sundays ago. Um, and I hate to say this is very selfish of me, what I did. But I attempted suicide. Everything had come to a head. And thankfully, I did not do it. I did not want to. After being in the woods, uh, sitting on damp leaves with pouring rain, with a knife to my neck, God came to me, I believe, and I did not do it. But it was very, very emotional.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and I scared my family to death, obviously. But I'm in a lot better place. Like I said, that team that I have already in place for this type of, I call it mental illness issues,
Yeah.
that's where I went after this happened. I went to seek them out, told them the situation, and was able to see them, able to get help. And also, my faith has helped me a lot as well. So, yeah, it's come to that. It came to that point, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate your strength and your vulnerability, my friend. I
Well,
appreciate you sharing that.
you're very welcome.
And faith is a powerful thing, man.
It is.
It's a
I've always,
powerful thing.
yeah, it's very powerful, and I've always been a God fearing person, and I've got away from it a little bit at times, but
We all
the
do.
scriptures help very much. Some of
Well,
the scriptures that deal with suffering, deal with loneliness, deal with depression, they're there.
yeah.
They're helpful.
Well, that's great. And of course, your wife and your children, they've been there by your side all along, right?
Well, I can't say enough about the support I've had from my wife. Sorry, I'm moving around again. From my wife and my children. One thing I will say is, if this happens to you, don't hide it from your children.
Yeah.
You need to know what's going on. You may think you're protecting them, but allow them to go through this with you and support you, and it's worth it.
That's great information, Rob. And as I reflect back, you,
Thanks, Curtis.
yeah, yeah,
The great support I've had from my family, friends, and my medical, my work, it's just been so wonderful. I just wanted to let everybody know that that's really what keeps you going.
great. We need that. We all need that. Say there's a person listening, um, diagnosed with cancer. You're stage 4, is that correct? Is that what they diagnosed you
Yeah,
with?
exactly. So I have regular 3-month scans, like I said, every 3 months. At the time, right now, I'm NED, no evidence of disease. That's how you know that, how they term it in medical terms. So it means I have no uh, active cancer at this time. So that's great news.
That is great
Uh,
news.
it's
That is,
great. It's super. I mean, it's happened to me twice, but then it's come back. So
yeah,
the likelihood, and I'm aware, my oncologist side talked, the likelihood of this cancer showing up again in a soft tissue like a lung or a muscle are very, very, very likely. So I am considered stage 4 metastatic Ewing sarcoma cancer. Um, so that's where I'm at, because it's so aggressive. It could show up. I have a next scan in end of January 20th to 6th. Something could show up after that scan. I don't know. It could show up 6 months from now. It could show up 2 years from now.
yeah.
So that's actually, Curtis, that's one thing that I try not to dwell on.
Right.
At this point, I've been through it all. I just live my life until I get to that point each time. And if you don't mind me using a little humor and swearing once, my
Help
oncologist,
yourself, man.
my oncologist is incredible. So he says to me, "Well, we're doing every 3 month scans, and you know that it's likely, very likely, that sometimes something else will show up." I said, "Yeah, I know that. I'm that it is what it is, and I need to live my life." But he says to me, "Don't worry, Rob." He says, "If something shows up as small enough, we'll just whack-a-mole the shit out of it with radiation." So I said, "I'm on board for that."
Absolutely. Whack away, man. Whack away.
Yeah.
So, Rob, a couple final things. This is a shared platform. Patient can have their moment. You have a voice. Say there's somewhere out there listening, and they just got the dreaded news. And sometimes that fear will make you run. I'm not going back. I don't want to hear any bad news, or I'm just going to ignore what they told me. I'm not going for the follow-up. And they're just kind of lost And I know you're not a medical physician, but you're someone who has been through the fire.
Yeah.
And so
But
your courage under fire, what kind of encouragement could you give them to help them to plow through it?
sure, there's a term in mental health, and it's a term from way back. All humans, since the beginning, have had what's called a fight or flight response. You can either fight or you can flight. If you flight and you run away from it, come back again. Don't stop fighting. You need to fight to get through this. So if you do feel like you're going to run away, get help from your family, get help from professionals to help you deal and work through that. That would be my advice.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
That's great advice, Rob.
Thank you.
So I won't make you or put you in a position to make any promises, but can we run this back in a few months just so you can give your upbeat optimism again, no matter what the situation?
Oh, I'd be happy to do that anytime, Curtis.
All right.
You just let me know.
Well, this is great, man. I appreciate the time. I hope I didn't take up too much of your morning.
You didn't. You're very welcome. You're a true and wonderful friend of mine, and you do wonderful work. So I'm happy to do it anytime.
All right. Thanks, my friend. God bless.
Thank you. Okay, Curtis, take care.